Welcome, Roster Wars. So that was my best Corbin impression, but you've got me today instead. I'm sorry, I'll be speaking a little bit more this week. So you need to translate a little bit. I'll maybe get some captions up and things like that, get the subtitles. But I'm joined by Tyler this week. He's in Gronk's house. So Tyler, how you doing?
What part of me was that?
You're in Gronk's house?
Yeah, Gronk's house. We're talking about tight ends, so yeah, it's not Kelsey's house; it's Gronk's house.
Yeah. Is Kelsey's the new best tight end ever? Gronk didn't last very long, did he? Can't even remember last time he played. Years ago, years ago.
Uh,
That era of the
I
Patriots is
think
gone for me.
I think Kelsey is not the best tight end ever. But
Okay, well, this isn't what this podcast's about, so we'll settle that debate another time. But like Tyler said, we're here to talk about tight ends. It's a bit of a weaker class, I suppose. Last year we had a few top prospects we talked about. This time it's maybe only the one that you could probably name that was going to go in the first round. But speaking of last year, Tyler, how did we do last year? Who did we talk about?
last year we talked about Dalton Kincaid, Michael Meyer, uh, Luke Musgrave, and Dwayne Washington. Those are the four dudes. Um, in our order of how we ranked them, Ross and Corbin, you guys ranked them exactly the same. You had Kincaid first, Meyer 1, Musgrave 3, and Washington 4. And because apparently I like big black dudes, I picked Washington 1, Kincaid 2, Meyer 3, and Musgrave 4. I still stick with that because I do believe that Washington will still produce in Pittsburgh.
Tight ends
As
take
for
time, don't they?
sleepers, actually, let's quickly get you can re-rank your guys.
I would change it actually. So I think I had Kincaid first. I think he was. I'll still have him first. I thought he'd done well enough. Obviously, tight ends take ages to actually be really good. So I'll have him first, and then Musgrave I would put second. I think he's just got a better receiving sort of production, receiving profile, and then Meyer third, and then Washington fourth. And I do agree Washington could become good one day. He's obviously got all the athletic stuff, but it's maybe going to be a few years. So I'll wait for that to happen. I'll take my
Yeah,
points now.
the only thing I with Meyer that or with Washington that is I didn't get the check, but I'm guessing he probably played the most snaps just because of his blocking ability. But I didn't check that out. But I could be wrong. I'm just
534
guessing.
snaps. So yeah, a decent amount he played.
And then with his QB situation always in turmoil, he could get better. It usually takes tight ends 3 or 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the sleepers. And Ross had Tucker Kraft, who was drafted third round by the Green Bay Packers. Uh, had 31 receptions, 355 yards, and 2 TDs. And Corbin's not here to gloat, but he drafted Sam Laporta, who was drafted, or he picked Sam Laporta, who was drafted second round by the Detroit Lions. 86 receptions, 889 yards, and 10 tutties. And I'm here to
Yep.
gloat because I picked Will Mallory, drafted fifth round by the Indianapolis Colts. Huge future still, 18 receptions, 207 yards, and exactly 0 tutties. So I still have faith in my sleeper.
That's good. We've all had our chance to gloat. I think you had CJ Stroud, I had Puka Nakua, and Corbin's doing his victory lap for Sam Laporta now. So it was a very good pick. It was turned out, what was he, the next best thing? Once Kelsey does retire, he'll be the number one tight end. We'll see.
No. It's not to get that crazy.
I think he's pretty good. I think he's done well. The only way is up. Once he hits his 5th-year breakout, imagine how good he could be. No. So we'll move on to this year. As ever, we're talking about 2 guys this week. We're doing it a bit differently because the class isn't as great, and there's a bit after the top 2. There's a bit of a sort of discussion, and it could be any one of 5 to 10 guys that we talk about. So we're going to do 2 main guys and then 2 sleepers of our own. So I'm excited to talk about some sleepers that I really like, but we'll start off with the generational prospect, Brock Bowers. So I'll do the wee spiel that Corbin usually does. He's 6'3", 243 pounds, coming out of Georgia. He had insane production throughout his career. He started for 3 years. He started as a freshman, and in his freshman season, he had 56 for 882 yards and 13 touchdowns. He had another good year in his sophomore year, and his final year was actually his worst statistically of his career. 56 receptions, 714 yards, and 6 touchdowns. But over the course of his career, 3 years, he's been unbelievable, and he's been promised for a couple of years now, ever since that freshman season, and he's finally out. He's finally declared for the draft. So, what do you reckon, Tyler? First round pick, Brock Bowers. Think he's a good player?
Oh, top 10 pick, probably, depending on team needs, I guess. But yeah, the kid's got it all. It was really, watching tape on him is really hard to find anything wrong with him. Best thing I could see was one guy said he needs to be a little crisper on his route running. So he's pretty much the most can't miss tight end prospect you could get.
Yeah, I'm with you. He moves very well. He's 6'3", 243 pounds. So normally that would be undersized, going by historical. You talk about Gronk that we talked about earlier, who's 6'5", 270, whatever he is. But Bowers is more in the mold of these modern tight ends. So we talked about Sam Laporta. He's almost exactly the same size. So he'll definitely get away with that. And I think he plays bigger than his size as well. So he's really tough. And for me, I said like this year was his worst year statistically. He was a completely different player. Like this year, he was just a yards after catch monster. So he would just get dump offs from the quarterback and run through 5 guys before he was finally tackled. He's very elusive. He's a tight end, but he catches the ball like a wide receiver, and then he's got the yards after catch like a running back. So I saw something a lot different this year. But in the previous years, he had like everything else. He had the downfield catch in. Obviously, he was a red zone threat as well. So, like you said, he does absolutely everything well. Top 10 pick in the NFL draft, potentially top 15, 20, whatever. But Tyler, I want to ask you the big question: are you taking him in the first round of fantasy drafts? He's a generational prospect. Would you still take him in the first round of a fantasy draft, even though he's a tight end?
That's going to all depend on the team he goes to in the NFL, because
So,
certain teams don't scheme for their tight end, certain teams do, and sometimes, yeah, I mean, you can get a bad QB situation like Kyle Pitts did, right? So yeah, that's all going to matter. But I mean, as most tight ends who are that high, he's probably late first, early second, where he'd probably be drafted.
yeah, I think I've made my opinions well versed on tight ends, but I just don't want to take a tight end that high because I've been burned by Kyle Pitts, and Noah Fant was my recent pick as well, and Evan Ingram and all these guys in the past who are first round picks in fantasy, but they either don't produce or they take 5-6 years to produce. Obviously, Kyle Pitts I thought was quite good, but he just didn't have touchdowns. So for fantasy, and because you're picking him, I think he's 104 or something like that. He was very high pick. Then yeah, he's not returning value for you. So yeah, I think that he's definitely going to be picked in the first round. When all said and done, but I don't think it's going to be me that's picking him anyway. I think John had his tight end success rate as well. So check that out in the roster wars. And I think there was 1 out of 9 in the last 10 years was deemed a success. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Historical. Everyone says Bowers is different. He's a generational prospect. So is Bowers going to beat history, or is history going to repeat itself again? So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. But I'm definitely not picking him. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Next one, Jatavian Sanders. Coming out of Texas, 6'3", 245 pounds. He's had 2 good years at Texas, and this last year, he was 45 receptions, 682 yards, but only 2 touchdowns. So in terms of production, he's been very good, probably the second best in the country. Going into the combine, he was sort of projected to be a decent athlete. I think we've all seen on the field, he looked quite fast, quite fluid, and he's primarily a receiving tight end. So I thought we were going to test well, but I was quite underwhelmed. His relative athletic score, his RAS, was 5.63. He did have some fast runs, so looks really good in a straight line. But some of the explosion testing, the vertical and the broad jump left a lot to be desired. So in terms of a player, looks good. What do you think, Tyler? Do you like Jatavian Sanders?
I do. I think it's another situation where, depending on where he goes again, because to me, like that the only getting 2 touchdowns was quite surprising. When I look at it, like how he put, some of the TDs he does get from like I've seen some high school video and stuff where he just like positions his body really well, and then there's one where he like ran up the sidelines. It was a contested catch, but he just kind of bodied the guy out of the way, and then with one arm just went like this and caught it, and just held it up while everybody. It was kind of like, little kids trying to jump for the candy while you're holding it up from them. I never do that, but yeah, he's got good hands. Like I'm surprised that he only has 2 TDs in college, like last year. But I would suspect that with his size and everything and his route running, that he would become he could become a pretty good red zone threat in the NFL with the right coaching and team. I seen a pretty good comp on him was David Njoku, which I thought was a pretty good comp for his skill set. The one thing I did see and read about is that like he's got adequate blocking for college level, but he's kind of like when guys come off the edge, he struggles. So coming into the NFL, he's going to need to work on that because tight end's got to block the edge quite a bit there. And yeah, other than that, I think he's got very reliable hands. I think he could be a real quarterback friend. So I like him.
Yeah.
So
I just looked up.
If I'm ranking these 2 guys, I'm going to say that he's second behind Bowers. So I'm going to go Bauer and then Sanders. 1, 2.
That's a hot take. I'm not sure many other people are going to have the same.
No, I don't know if you have the same, but
I like to get spicy now and then, but I don't think I'm that crazy. But I looked up David Njoku's measurables just that you mentioned. So Jatavian Sanders, 6'4", 245 pounds. I've got here. David Njoku, 6'4", 246 pounds. Njoku ran 4.64 in the 40. Sanders ran 4.69. So maybe something to that. But I like that you mentioned that his hands and he's sort of receiving. I think that's where he wins best, is at the catch point. He's got big soft hands. He didn't have a single drop last year, which is very good. And he sort of does position his body so that he could win as much as he can. So I like him as a receiving threat, but like you said as well, in the NFL, he's not going to be a blocker, which is maybe not the best for NFL teams, but for fantasy, that's pretty good. You don't want these guys getting snaps in line and blocking. You want them out running routes and with a potential to catch the ball. So yeah, absolutely. Brock Bowers number one ahead of Sanders for me as well. But for me, I think I didn't see maybe as much sort of ceiling because of I'm maybe a bit spooked by the combine performance and the sort of overall athletic profile. So I could see him being a reliable tight end, but maybe not your Sam Laporta, for example, like a big breakout early on. So yeah, I maybe not as high as some on him, but I think he can still be a good player at the next level. Okay. So on to our sleepers now. So we're going to do two each. So we'll maybe go back and forth. So Tyler, give me your first sleeper. Tell me who it is.
Well, I'm going to do my sleepers and Corbin's sleepers.
Okay.
But my sleeper, my first one is Ben Sinnott.
Very good.
And tight end, Kansas State. I mean, he had 48. What was he? He was a junior last year. He had 48 receptions, 669 yards, and 6 TDs. He's just really good at finding the soft spot to get open for his quarterback and reading zones and stuff. He's got good size, and I didn't write down his size, but I forgot that.
6'4", 250 pounds.
He uses his size and strength well. One thing is he showed freak athleticism in his vertical jump and his broad jump and the 3-cone drill, which were all I believe tops of the tight end class when he did them. I got a Michael Meyer comp from him, and I like him.
Yeah, he was actually one of my sleepers as well. He's going to be my top guy. My spicy take is he's actually my number 2 ranked tight end, so I would have him above Jatavian Sanders. So very good pick there. I think you mentioned that all the things he's good at in terms of his athletic profile, but he did have the production to back it up as well. I love his agility, and he just sort of moves differently as well than all these other guys in the class. So, and the one other thing is that he's a 0-star recruit. He was a walk-on at Kansas State, so I always like to see that. I think these guys are destined to be hard workers and have all the intangible stuff. So very good pick. Very good pick. I need to rethink what I was going to do there then. So with my first sleeper, I'm going to look at a guy who's maybe a bit deeper than that. For a late round pick, I'm going for a Canadian, Tanner McLachlan from Arizona. So he was he's Canadian. He went to Canada in high school. He's a wide receiver there. And then he went to Southern Utah. So not a high sort of pedigree school. And he didn't even have any production there. So he was there for a couple of years and he had some serious injuries. But then he joined Arizona as a walk-on. So another walk-on. And in his first season there, he put up 456 yards. So he does have a lot of production. And last year he had 45 catches, 528 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's 6'5", 244 pounds, and he had decent sort of combine numbers. His 40 time and his explosion numbers, the jumps were great. And his game, he's got good hands, strong to hold on to the ball as well. And he's another guy that had 0 drops last year. So I really like Tanner McLachlan. You're probably not going to hear much about him, but he's a late round pick, probably a developmental guy. But I hope he lands somewhere on a roster. I thought he's a decent blocker as well. Better blocker than I sort of would think for a converted wide receiver. But yeah, really like him. Hope he can do well. And maybe a bit deep for our fantasy drafts, but keep an eye on him. So Fast and Furious, Tyler,
all right,
back to you. You got a second sleeper?
Well, I'll do Corbin's first sleeper, and then I'll do my sleeper. Corbin's not here, but the only information Corbin gave me on his sleeper was his name is Theo Johnson.
Penn State.
I haven't had a chance. I haven't. Penn State.
Yep.
Is that what you said?
Yep.
Okay, so he's from
6'6",
Penn State.
£259.
Okay, so Corbin says Theo Johnson. He's a tight end 3. He's his tight end 3, and he reminds him of Mike Gesicki. So we'll go with that. My second sleeper, who I thought nobody would take, but it was also Corbin's second sleeper, is Eric All. He is from Iowa. We all know that Iowa tight ends do great, although he only transferred there his last year of college. He was in Michigan before that. But he's 6'4", 252 pounds. Last year with Iowa, he had 21 receptions, 299 yards, and 3 TDs. He's more of a slot receiving tight end. But he's he can make a lot of catches over the middle in traffic. He's got really good hands, except for he tends to drop the ball when he's like coming back towards it. Is the only time he has trouble. He's got to work on that. And yeah, of course, if they're going to try to use him as a blocker, he's got to work on his blocking. He's a work in progress, but he spent a year in Iowa, so he's got to have the magic touch to become something.
Yeah, so, I'm at the point where you just take anyone that's an Iowa tight end. It's an absolute factory there. But he only played 7 games last year because he's tore his ACL. So maybe that's why we're not hearing much about him, because he's injured. But you said he had 299 yards, 7 games played. He still led the team in receiving, which is crazy. It just goes to show you. So imagine what he could have done if he wasn't injured. So
even better than I thought.
Like that pack. So my second sleeper, I'm going to go for a guy not as deep. I'll go a little bit more shallow. So a guy who could be draftable in fantasy. I'm going to go for Cade Stover out of Ohio State. So he was recruited to Ohio State as a linebacker initially. He was like a 4-star prospect as a linebacker, and converted to tight end after a couple of years. He actually played a linebacker for I think 2 years, and then he converted to a tight end. So the last 2 years he's had really good production. Obviously he's in that CJ Stroud tight end, and then the less he said about Kyle McCord, the better. But 2 good years of production. He's 6'4", 247 pounds, and he had an 8.13 RAS score, relative athletic score. His 40 time was decent, but I wouldn't say anything else was amazing. But what I liked about him is he's just a very physical player. He just plays like a linebacker at tight end. So love to see that. That's obviously what you need when you run over the middle of the field. He catches the ball away from his frame as well, and he can adjust the balls that are badly thrown. And I think he got decent yards after the catch ability because he's got that physicality, and he sort of tries to stiff arm and run over defenders. So, I think he's going to be drafted maybe 3rd to 5th round, something like that. So if he lands on a decent team, then he might be draftable in fantasy, but maybe not. A guy I like though, plays the game I like to be seen by tight ends. So yeah, not much more to be said. Tyler, that was
so
quick.
Well, do you want to rank these guys, or do you just feel like it's pretty set in stone?
Well, the top two, the two guys you said first, but yeah,
who was it that you had as your tight end 2? Ben Sinnott, or
right? Okay, so I'll give you the guys that I talked about, because I've done pretty much all of them. So I had Brock Bowers number 1, I had Ben Sinnott number 2, I still had Jatavian Sanders 3. I like Theo Johnson as well, so he's my number 4. I had Cade Stover 5. Then I had Eric All, and then Tanner McLachlan. So that's actually my top 7 guys, as everyone we talked about. So good job on the sleepers, folks. We obviously see things the right way. What about you? Do you like any of these guys? How would you rank a couple of them?
I'm kind of iffy on the Senate. I'm kind of with you there. I have a feeling he's going to be better than Sanders. So yeah, same thing. I go Bowers, Senate, and Sanders, and then I would put Eric All fourth. I didn't catch your fourth though. I missed that one. Just your top 4 were Bowers, Senate, Sanders, and who?
Theo Johnson. So the one Corbyn's other sleeper, Theo Johnson.
Okay.
He's athletic testing was like he's a 9.93 RAS score, so he's like insanely athletic, and I just think you've got to bet on that at the tight end. If you're going to bet on someone who has poor production but good athleticism, then maybe that's the way to do it. Is at tight end.
Okay.
All right. Do you have anything else to say, Tyler? We've done a quick one here. I'll be honest, I don't like doing this without Corbin, so come back next week, Corbin. I'm not very good at this. I like just talking now and then. We need someone to steer the ship. Anything else to add, Tyler?
No, thanks for steering the ship, Ross, and everybody get excited for RFA.
Oh yeah, we'll be spending a lot of time on that this week. So good luck in RFA, folks, and we'll catch you next week. See you later.
Later.